today. We'll get started in just a minute as folks continue to log in. As a quick reminder, we like to keep these webinars conversational, so feel free to engage with the chat throughout the session and we'll address questions as they come up throughout the webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about performance TV meets unified measurement, some exciting stuff. But with that, let's dive in. I'll let our panelists introduce themselves. Emily, would you like to go first?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name's Emily, and I'm on our product team at Rockerbox. So I have the opportunity to speak with a lot of our customers on kind of how they're thinking about measurement for all channels, including CTV. And then I get to build out some of the cool solutions for that measurement like we have with Mountain. So excited to dive into all things CTV in a little bit more detail today, as well as, of course, hear your questions too.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Sierra Panter. I'm a solutions architect over here at Mountain. I've been with the team for just over 3 years now. I actually started on our onboarding team where I helped Mountain customers launch their first campaigns. Most recently, I've been working with our enterprise level customers, which is great. These days, I focus on building out solutions for both our customers and internal teams, basically anything that helps solve bigger picture challenges I'm a part of. Excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation today, and thanks for having me.
All right. Our first question is, with advertiser investment shifting towards CTV, what's driving this trend and how should brands view CTV in their overall media mix? Sierra, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, happy to. So there's definitely been a huge shift in advertising dollars towards CTV efforts, mostly just because brands are following their audience. I think, these days, many households are exclusively consuming streaming television content. I don't know about you guys, but I'm personally one of those households who's never paid for linear TV, mostly because the shows that I like are only available on streaming. So as time goes on, we're seeing more and more households cutting the cord on linear as a whole and moving towards CTV content, much of that content being on ad-supported streaming platforms. Actually, CTV has officially surpassed linear as the first step for TV watchers, according to a study that I saw recently. So that's pretty significant as we look toward the future of TV advertising and where audiences have their eyes. I also think another reason budgets are following CTV is just because it's been transformed into this performance channel, right? So it's very unlike linear, where it can be extremely difficult to do any sort of analysis of direct impact on site visits and conversions. So, all of a sudden with something like CTV, digital marketing teams can log into platforms like Mountain and Rockerbox and see its influence on those lower funnel KPIs that matter, like cost per visit or return on ad spend, CPA. I think, too, the other thing is linear can be expensive and inaccessible to many smaller businesses who just don't have the budget available for spots on primetime linear. So, CTV can be a great option to get impressions on the largest screen in the household with those smaller budgets. Actually, Mountain advertisers, about 93% of our advertisers have never actually advertised on TV before. So the barrier for entry for CTV is definitely a lot lower compared to that of linear.
Yeah, I think the accessibility piece is a great one to hit on. Like platforms like Mountain have just made it so much easier to actually, as an advertiser, buy CTV inventory in a way that's like automated, programmatic, and self-serve. Thinking about 5 or 10 years ago when an advertiser, especially a smaller brand that might have, less than $1 million to spend in a given month, thinking about TV was really daunting. You had to get a TV buying agency. There were very high spend minimums. The buying agency kind of has to have network relationships, and there's not really a good way to measure if that's actually being successful. So when you think, I have to spend a couple of $100,000 up front to even understand if this is having an impact on the bottom line, that really isn't worth it for a lot of smaller brands. But now with more of that performance focus, self-serve platforms, and stronger measurement, it's so much easier to access a lot of that awesome CTV inventory that has such strong attention from consumers that you're looking to reach.
All right, and question 2, with CTV functioning alongside other paid channels, how should marketers approach cross-channel attribution to accurately assess CTV's impact? Emily, you want to take this one?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think a lot of the times hearing that there's kind of a cross-channel impact of a given channel can be a little bit scary because as an advertiser, you're thinking like, how can I drive a conversion as efficiently as possible? And sometimes in theory, that means just with a single touch point, but it's 100% expected that CTV is going to overlap with other paid channels on a user journey. Like I'm thinking about even myself as a consumer. Last night, I was watching tennis TV and saw an ad from one of the brands that we actually work with. And if I think about what it would look like to actually like follow that user journey, I would probably get on my phone, go on Google, and Google the brand. And don't worry, I'm clicking on the organic search results, not the brand search results, but it takes those, even multiple touch points to land on the brand site to ultimately make that purchase. So in a lot of, last click solutions, that ends up looking like organic or brand search drove the conversion when in reality, I as a consumer never would have heard of the brand if it weren't for that first CTV touch point. So there are many mechanisms through which CTV can be measured. And I think just having a baseline understanding of what your measurement plan is going into starting to test into CTV is super important, and kind of understanding that cross-channel approach. If you're looking in platform, it is really hard to understand the cross-channel impact because each platform only has visibility into its own impact. If you're coming from a last click world, no views are tracked. So you likely want to do something like look at the halo impact of a test on CTV on those bottom funnel channels like brand and organic search. If your measurement baseline is an MTA or multi-touch attribution system like Rockerbox, we have these great integrations where we're able to track views, and that allows you to set a really strong baseline for like what performance goals am I looking to set for this channel, maybe based on how channels that play a similar role in the funnel or are also heavily view-based have performed in the past. And if you're looking to even go beyond that baseline measurement and starting to look at testing or incrementality, it's just important to design a test upfront that allows you to look at that cross-channel impact on your bottom line.
Yeah, Emily, I'm probably going to echo a lot of your points there, but it's very true that it's tough to assess impact from CTV efforts, especially because of that halo effect that you were speaking to, Emily. So, like another example of a user journey is seeing a TV ad that first catches your attention. There is no clickable action at that time, though, right? So then later that day, maybe I'm on social, and then I can actually click through to get to the brand's website. So, it can be difficult to determine ultimate conversion credit just because all these channels work together with CTV to influence a single conversion, just like, the examples that we shared. So at the end of the day, I think this is a good thing though, right? Hitting your audience on multiple devices through different channels to drive impact. And, Rockerbox is one of the few multi-touch attribution platforms that actually allows non-clickable channels like CTV to be treated similarly to other digital channels that are clickable. So through the Mountain and Rockerbox integration and partnership, Mountain advertisers can use Rockerbox to see Mountain performance alongside all their other paid efforts, which is great. Just like you said, Emily, oftentimes ad platforms like Mountain too only show you that specific platform's influence on visits and conversions. So looking at each of your paid channels reporting platforms in a silo, there's absolutely going to be overlap, right? That's definitely expected. But with an integration to something like Rockerbox, advertisers can validate their deduped results using multi-touch attribution, media mix modeling to assign credit across all of their channels, and also, assess the bigger picture of the entire marketing mix.
All right, question number 3. Many marketers struggle with over-attribution in CTV. What steps can brands take to ensure they are measuring true impact? Sierra, you want to take this one?
Yeah, happy to. So over-attribution definitely continues to be a top concern, I would say, for advertisers. We've mentioned it before, but what's the difference between, something like paid search or social and CTV? It's clicks, right? So TV screens are not clickable at the end of the day. So Mountain actually had to come up with a solution for this and was actually the first to do so in the CTV space. So Mountain has this patent pending attribution model that we lean on as a solution to the unclickable TV screen, and we call it verified visits. So that attribution methodology is built upon 3 principles. The first one is verified viewable ads. And then we also have the second, which is a customizable visit window, which is very important. And then lastly, we lean on cross-device event tracking within a household. So what this means essentially is we're able to connect website visits on smaller devices. So think your iPhone or laptop at home, right? To a TV impression within that same household. So to accomplish this, Mountain essentially uses a technology that's a proprietary identity graph. What that does is it monitors cross-device connections at the household level for 99% of addressable households in the US. So we're able to confirm through this tech that the household that viewed your TV commercial is the same household that visited the website. So I know I spoke to this briefly before about the halo effect that CTV, has on other paid channels. But, it's important to mention, it's common to see a boost in paid search and social performance. So seeing an increase in conversion rate for those channels is definitely expected. Streaming ads can tend to drive new demand, but it also warms leads. So consumers are already aware of a brand before even seeing ads on search or social. One thing is, since Rockerbox has validated this verified visit attribution approach that Mountain has created to track performance, CTV can sit alongside other channels within Rockerbox. And you can see performance via their unified measurement framework, which is really impactful for advertisers.
Yeah, it's funny, maybe this just means I've been in the attribution space for too long, but I feel like over attribution is kind of a dirty word that's important to unpack. I think, there are definitely some, maybe other providers where probabilistic measurement is probably going to be used because clicks aren't available for CTV. The most common is an IP analysis where, in theory, if I go to an airport and I see a streaming ad, and then, there are 30 people around me who have the potential to visit a site, I think there's kind of that fear that because of that shared IP probabilistic methodology that, the CTV ad gets way overcredited. If say 30 people that I'm sitting with, maybe half of them visit the site and a couple of them convert, or maybe not. I think that's kind of where the fear comes in terms of over attribution. But I really think at the end of the day, the fear of over attribution is really that advertisers look at conversions and revenue in platform and they see that the parts are, okay, I think the connection is still fine, but okay. Yeah, I think advertisers look in platform and they see that the parts of their marketing mix and the total number of conversions at the end of the day combine to greater than a sum of their parts. So that there's that concern that channels are taking credit from each other. So without that kind of cross-channel visibility and understanding of how all of these channels work together, it's easy to think like, oh, every platform is taking credit for driving more conversions than I know actually happened on site at the end of the day. So I think that's why it's really important to have that always on baseline measurement of, you know, looking at all of my channels together in a platform like, maybe it's GA for last click, maybe it's Rockerbox for a more sophisticated measurement solution. How many conversions happened in a given day, and what changed in my marketing mix on, a week to week basis that may change that baseline. Um, so I think that is one great solution for kind of understanding um, how to not be so scared with over attribution. There is like that clear relationship between a marketing touch point and a conversion that can be seen with something like a multi-touch attribution platform. For advertisers who might, look beyond multi-touch attribution and maybe have more of a testing strategy, that same baseline can be set. So, like, how many conversions happened within a given day when I increase my spend on something like CTV? What's the impact on overall conversions? And I think just having that good understanding of what the baseline is and being able to measure results against that can help with really understanding what the true impact of that channel is, so that the kind of fear of over attribution gets broken down a little bit more, and you can really clearly take action off of those insights.
All right, I feel like that leads nicely into our next question. How can marketers use testing methodologies such as incrementality testing to refine their targeting, creative strategy, and budget allocation? Emily, do you want to take this one too?
Yeah, definitely. I think testing can also be a little bit of a scary word. So, just to break it down, I actually feel like testing is the simplest of all of the measurement methodologies, because it really just means we have a hypothesis that we're looking to understand a little bit more. We need to execute on that hypothesis by running a test and then measure the results at the end to understand what the true performance of that channel is, assuming that all else is equal. So, if I design a test on my mountain ads, it's preferable that I don't also run a test on my, meta ads at the exact same time to obfuscate those results. Um, so there are different types of testing. There's A/B testing, which can be really successfully executed with like any measurement, whether it's in platform with like something like Rockerbox being cross-channel. But that's really looking at something like when I change my audience targets, or if I'm trying to reach a new audience, how does that compare to my kind of always on performance? Or if I have a specific creative strategy that I'm looking to test to understand what resonates best with certain audiences, how does this new creative compare to my baseline? So again, we come back to having that really strong baseline of measurement, and then really just devising a plan to test a new version of the audience or creative against that baseline. And of course, we kind of scale into whatever is the strongest performing of those kind of A or B or C versions during a test. There's also a version of testing that looks more like an incrementality or a holdout test, which honestly takes the same like A/B concept, but looks at exposed versus unexposed users. So if we were looking to understand something like what's the incremental impact of my spend on CTV, and is it really driving, conversions, is it driving revenue? We can look at maybe one geographic region versus another that have pretty similar behaviors. Look at, again, a baseline performance before we start the test, expose, maybe a certain geo to my ads and then measure what's the lift in conversions or revenue or whatever that KPI is in the geo that we're testing into versus the one that was not exposed or that didn't see any change. So that's a really good way to understand, once we have that baseline, like what is the ultimate contribution of this given channel, again, all else being the same.
Yeah, I can go next. Yeah, testing is definitely crucial for CTV, just like it is with other performance channels. So at Mountain, we're always recommending that you have budget set aside to run tests just to learn, like Emily mentioned, what creative is resonating with your audiences, which audience definitions are moving the needle. In terms of like granular testing strategy, right? We always recommend testing only one variable at a time, just so you know exactly what variable is driving the performance change in your test. So that variable could be the length of the creative spot. So like a 15 versus 30-second creative, the messaging at the end card, or like a male versus female voiceover as a few examples. I think too, also testing can be pretty surprising. Even at Mountain, we use our own platform to test new creative concepts and different audiences pretty often, just to learn about what's resonating and maximize the impact of the channel as a whole. So CTV actually drives 25% of Mountain's website visits already. So we're always looking, for ways to continue to maximize performance. The other thing is, while we have the advantage of a celebrity chief creative officer, a famous face definitely is not required to drive performance. So just recently, actually, we ran a test with one of our lower funnel campaigns. The creative we use featured the Mountain platform itself, so more of like a platform demo and a simple voiceover from just a Mountain employee, not someone from the red carpet. And the results were pretty striking. We actually saw a 19% increase in visit rate. Our increase in conversion rate went up 95%, and our CPA went down 53% too, which is pretty surprising. So just a testament to how, you should never assume what creative types your target market responds to, and testing can uncover those learnings. In terms of other best practices for testing, it's never a good idea to do a broad test during a peak sales period. So if you're an e-commerce brand, right, I would definitely try to avoid performing any sort of test during Black Friday, holiday season in general. So, in order to run a fair test where you're learning the most, it's definitely recommended to test in a more neutral time of the year just to figure out what works. And then, after figuring out what's performing, that's when we can implement those strategies during the peak periods of the year, like holidays or special promotional or sales times for your brand. One thing I would say our advertisers do love about the Mountain platform is how easy it is to test and make changes on the fly within the platform itself. So things like, campaign creative, audiences, budget, all can be adjusted at any time in the Mountain platform, and the changes go into effect immediately. So, while of course it's great to plan a test ahead of time and have a plan, if you need to put a test into action pretty quickly, Mountain can definitely accommodate for that. And then, of course, advertisers are able to evaluate those results of the test in both the Mountain platform and something like Rockerbox under an MTA or MMM model, which is really beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's a great point around when to test. We've seen a lot of our advertisers who are kind of locking in their channel tests now. And that's even looking at like which channels are most effective and what are my options when it comes to scaling my prospecting campaigns. And I think that prepares them well for the Black Friday period, rather than sitting here in October and November and thinking like, I have no idea how I'm going to reach those extra, million eyeballs to drive the end results that I'm looking for. I think getting ahead and starting to run these tests now will make it easier for advertisers when, they're given a revenue goal that they're asked to hit by Black Friday. you'll actually know, what can I expect will drive to this revenue goal way before, rather than kind of sitting there blindly when it comes to that peak season and not really knowing how to best drive results.
All right, for brands looking to scale their CTV investments, what are the most effective strategies for optimizing spend, measuring success, and ensuring CTV is driving incremental revenue? Sierra, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So firstly, when thinking about optimizations, using a platform that has auto optimization technology is great, just so you can focus on more time on things like testing, like we were talking about, and also data validation. One thing is at Mountain, we're optimizing our campaigns thousands of times per day, using real-time performance data that informs our algorithms, all with the intention, right, of driving the best possible results for our campaigns based on our advertisers' campaign goals. In terms of measuring success, I think the first step is determining what success looks like for your brand. Is that seeing a certain ROAS number? Is it something like brand lift or incremental lift? Are we wanting to drive sales of a certain product or service that you offer, right? So, speaking of incrementality, we're seeing more and more advertisers interested in measuring incrementality as a success indicator. Incrementality is measuring performance outcomes that a channel like CTV is driving, right, compared to the results that we would have seen anyway. So one thing is Mountain has a built-in incrementality reporting solution that's included at no extra cost, which is great. But there's plenty of other incrementality measurement partners that can help with an incrementality test as well for CTV, which is great. At the end of the day, we definitely suggest that advertisers examine what's working best for their business and go from there. We do see a vast majority of our advertisers leverage an MTA platform to help them evaluate results. And Rockerbox allows them to see what's working, deduped across all of their channels, including CTV, like we've said. I think, another key factor to help you scale CTV is being intentional with your creative assets. Like we talked about, it's important to regularly A/B test creatives and refresh creative assets pretty regularly to avoid ad fatigue and ad blindness in your audience. So we recommend those creative refreshes quarterly at a minimum, but even more frequently if you can. Also, instead of using like a single video creative concept for all of your CTV campaigns, Mountain always recommends having multiple creative versions that speak to different audiences or strategies that you have. So, for example, like a prospecting versus retargeting sort of messaging and creative, or like a D2C versus B2B sort of messaging. Creative that's tailored toward a certain audience type and speaks directly to them can perform exceptionally well for brands compared to a more generalized creative.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head went as well. Like, I think creative fatigue is something that I think it used to be more popular, and then I think a lot of people forgot about it. When we start to see that performance is plateauing within a given channel, there's a lot that can be done before we consider that this channel isn't effective anymore, right? Like making those more granular in-channel optimizations, making sure the audience is continuing to see refreshed messaging, especially if you're leaning into retargeting as an option within CTV, which is actually, we can get to this later, but absolutely a possibility these days with some of the targeting technology that CTV platforms allow you to be able to deploy. I think that can really help advertisers squeeze the most out of a channel when they're looking to drive more and more incremental revenue. I think something that we see sometimes with advertisers as well is a little bit of like a fear reaction when you first start to launch a channel and are first starting to scale into it, especially if you're thinking of CTV as like a prospecting channel. We know it takes multiple touch points and multiple days to drive a user to convert. So if I scale my spend today, by the end of the day when I close my laptop or by tomorrow when I open it up again, like you might not see conversions and revenue yet because users are still in that buyer journey. They, may have heard of your brand that they never had heard of, sitting here right now, but they still need to complete that full funnel. So I think a common mistake to avoid is set that baseline target, start to scale your spend, have a clear measurement plan in place, and then give your tests and your scaling time to do what you expect them to do before starting to kind of get frantic and consider kind of going back to those always on channels that you're testing into this new channel for a reason. It's because there's maybe you've reached your point of scale on the kind of always on paid channels. And I think allowing tests to run their course and making those kind of micro optimizations within the campaign, but giving yourself the opportunity to really see results from the channel is important.
All right, our last question. How should marketers think about CTV's role within the customer journey and overall marketing funnel? Emily, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about like CTV as a prospecting channel versus a retargeting channel. I think, if we think about TV in general, it's historically been thought of as strictly a top of funnel channel. Sometimes it doesn't even get the name top of funnel because it's not even hit the budget of a performance marketing team. A lot of, legacy brands run TV within their like brand departments. They're not even looking for conversion outcomes. Maybe they're looking for like a reach KPI. And what I think is exciting to so many advertisers about CTV specifically is the ability to measure it as a performance channel, have hands-on keyboards as if you're running campaigns within like Meta or within Google Ads. So I think, having like being empowered to run CTV as a performance marketing channel is really powerful and allows advertisers as well to like better benchmark CTV against, say, that social prospecting or against direct mail prospecting campaigns. The improved targeting capabilities from CTV, however, kind of does make CTV, and I'm curious to hear Sierra's point of view on this as well, but it does make it a valid mid-funnel channel as well. If you're looking to target like existing site visitors or a more narrow like lookalike audience, the kind of technology with platforms like Mountain can allow you to have more refined targeting there so that, you can potentially, expose users who have seen your streaming ad to display ads that they may be better able to click on when, I mentioned watching tennis TV and then I'm on my phone. Maybe I get that display retargeting ad and now I know exactly how to find the site to drive the conversion. So I think, the ability to unlock this as an additional retargeting channel is really powerful. But Sierra, I'll let you speak to kind of what that looks like on the Mountain platform as well, or any further insights.
Yeah, I think this is actually my favorite question. While CTV can be an effective upper funnel channel, as we know, Mountain's always thought as CTV as a performance channel. It has the ability to drive those bottom funnel metrics, just like search and social. Actually, the majority of our advertisers have a ROAS or CPA goal for both their prospecting and retargeting campaigns, which is great. Nowadays too, CTV campaigns are very easy to manage. Like you mentioned, Emily, just like paid search and social channels. So I know the Mountain platform, I've worked in it with customers, for years. It makes it super, super easy to launch a CTV campaign extremely quickly. There's literally only a few steps to take before being in market with ads. I've helped multiple brands, sign up for the Mountain platform and have campaigns in market, within 24 hours, which is really great. In terms of the overall marketing funnel, historically linear has been that upper funnel awareness tool, just because TV performance has been difficult to measure and track, and linear's audience targeting, like you were mentioning, Emily, the options there aren't as precise as what's available through OTT devices. So CTV kind of expands TV to the entire marketing funnel, just like paid search and social. You can measure performance results and even retarget those site visitors with CTV ads like you were talking about. And we are seeing more and more advertisers leverage retargeting and CRM targeting too, as well, with CTV. So retargeting can be a very powerful tool, just because you can target specific customer segments from your website. So users who have visited a certain like product category, for example, like shoes, for example, and you can put TV commercials featuring your brand shoes directly into their household. So, just like we were talking about earlier, this kind of form of audience and creative matching can be incredibly impactful on those lower funnel KPIs like ROAS. CRM targeting is the other one that comes to mind that advertisers are using, and I think should be using. CRM targeting allows you to re-engage lapsed users, for example, or certain customer segments that you want to target with specific creative or messaging wherever they're watching TV, right? CTV. So for like the lapsed user example, maybe you have like a promo for reactivation. You could reach those lapsed users via CTV with that promo offer. And luckily, programs or platforms like Rockerbox help us to see all of our CTV efforts at those lower funnel stages of the customer journey. So we can see the number of conversions attributed to CTV from those CRM campaigns specifically. We can see that fractional ROAS or CPA all deduped from our other channels.
Now we're all wondering, like, what were we Googling on our phones that caused us to see the streaming ad that we saw yesterday?
Always.
All right, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat now.
Yeah, I think something that I was just thinking of as we were talking that's pretty cool about CTV compared to kind of traditional linear TV is I think there was always a fear with linear of like how many ad dollars am I wasting for people who like walk away from their TV or just have it on while they're doing something else. And I think something that's cool about the user behavior with CTV is like I'm choosing to put on a certain program. I'm probably, sitting down, ready to be engaged way more, like in a way more engaged way with this show than whatever I'm putting on in the background while I'm doing something else. So I think just in terms of engagement and kind of like awareness, I'm excited about CTV as having some more potential there beyond kind of traditional TV.
No questions, I guess. That's a first, I think, on our webinars. Just give it another second in case any roll in. Oh.
Ariel, I have a question.
Yeah.
Maybe that Sierra can answer, that I've heard from a couple of the brands that we work with that are a little bit more B2B. I think there's often the question of like, if I'm a B2B brand, how do I get in front of, the right buyers? So I guess kind of, Sierra, would you be able to give some context into like if CTV can drive results for those B2B brands beyond like what I'm maybe currently running in search and social and of course like heavy email marketing?
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of B2B brands have a lot of success with the Mountain platform, I would say. I think a big part of it is that TV advertising is accessible to B2B brands just because we have those lower budget thresholds to get on the large screen like we were talking about earlier. Also, the audience targeting capabilities are very precise and a big differentiator. So like, for example, you can target something like a CMO or decision maker for a certain size business, like small businesses, for example, and hit them, where they're streaming TV at home. So the other thing is too, with CTV as a performance channel, B2B companies can get very granular in measuring actual outcomes from their campaigns. So think demos booked or leads generated, for example. We have tech at Mountain where you can actually do a match back process to know, that CTV drove a specific lead or a demo that you're going to have. So I think the other thing too is B2B creative. It doesn't have to be boring. We know that product demos can be effective, but TV ads with emotion included or something untraditional for B2B brands can really get attention while they're watching TV at home with their families, and is a really impactful tool that I think a lot more B2B brands should be taking advantage of.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that 25% of Mountain traffic is driven by CTV ads. So if that's not a testament to it being pretty successful for B2B, I don't know what is. Like, you trust it yourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. The proof is in the pudding. 25%, it's pretty significant. So we're definitely leveraging our platform all the time.
I thought of a question. Actually, what role does AI have in CTV advertising?
Emily, do you want to take that one first, or I can, either one?
Yeah. I think there's probably a more interesting story to tell with how it's used for like targeting and creative capabilities. So maybe if you have some thoughts on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. In terms of AI, such a buzzword these days, I think it's probably played a little bit more of a role in the advertising space to this point than people realize. AI is actually in a lot of back-end systems for a lot of tools that we're using, a lot of advertisers use. So, think bidding and auto optimization sort of technologies that I was talking about earlier. One example specific to Mountain is our Mountain Matched technology. We've been putting out our Mountain Matched messaging a lot, so I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but it's essentially this AI generated audience that's customized for each individual advertiser, and it helps them reach their highest intent audiences automatically and first with their budgets. So to give a couple examples, like a pet brand, for example, would have Mountain Matched keywords included in their audience, like dog treats or pet grooming or something like aquarium supplies, things like that. So, all of those keywords are generated from AI that evaluates the brand's website to see what keywords could be specifically relevant to the brand based on everything that's on the website itself. I think too, AI has automated a lot of the tedious day-to-day tasks for advertisers and media buyers too, just so they can focus on the higher level, strategic tasks rather than the day-to-day minutia or, frequent campaign optimizations. It definitely frees up a lot of time across the board. Another cool thing with video creative specifically that we've been seeing is, AI can help make edits to a script, for example, for a video. It can, update voiceovers. So, there's a lot of options, but, especially the more I use AI, this definitely sticks. But, AI can only do so much and is only so effective. Human touch really, creates the best outcome at the end of the day. So a good mix of AI and, that human touch really drives the best outcome.
Yeah, I
It
think.
looks like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I think in the measurement space as well, sometimes it's great to think about how I can do this advanced analysis to understand whatever hypothesis I'm looking to unpack. And sometimes there just like isn't the time in the day. I think one cool thing about Rockerbox and the verified visit integration is we have this really robust foundational data set. And a lot of our advertisers access this through like a log level data warehouse report. And that gets really granular and shows kind of all of the marketing touch points on a user's path to conversion. So if you're looking to unpack like, what other marketing channels are most often overlapping with Mountain and driving that conversion, or starting to get into some of those more granular path to conversion questions. I think if it's, writing a query or starting to ask like LLMs questions about your data, really all you need is that strong data foundation to be able to answer some of those really insightful marketing questions about your user journey.
It looks like we did get a question in the chat, and it is, what if I don't have video creative to run on CTV?
Yeah, I can definitely take this one. So this is definitely something that we hear pretty often. Like I've mentioned, a lot of our advertisers have never advertised on TV before, so they often don't have creative ready to go. We see advertisers get pretty crafty when sourcing video creatives for their Mountain launches. So repurposing, videos that were used for channels like social is something we see pretty often. We're also seeing this kind of trend of advertisers lean into UGC style content, by using things like influencer or customer videos even. So that's definitely been trending lately. There's also some accessible, options to get TV creative without breaking the bank, not super expensive. So Mountain has a creative arm called Quick Frame by Mountain. It essentially connects advertisers with video creators to help them with initial concepting all the way through creative delivery, so full cycle. So that's a great affordable option as well, Quick Frame by Mountain. I would say too, when we talk about creative refreshes, it can be difficult to, have the funds to be able to be refreshing your creative frequently, right? So, it's obviously preferred to have refreshes, but smaller tweaks to video creatives that you have can go a long way. So simple edits, things like, changing a voiceover, like we were talking about, or updating an end card, just to keep things new and fresh for your audience at a low cost can be pretty effective.
Very cool. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So that leads us to a big thank you to everybody for joining us, and to Sierra and Emily. Thank you for your insights. And as a reminder, the session has been recorded and we'll be sending it out shortly. I did see a question in the chat about getting this after, so that will be sent out soon. And a big thank you to Mountain for partnering on this webinar, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.